Hey, welcome to The Huddle. Now, before we start, I want us to watch a clip from a movie called Who Killed Captain Alex? It's a movie that was shot out of Uganda by a company called Ramon Film Productions, and it's part of a movement called Wakaliwood. Let's take a look.
Where are you? Here!
Man, the man is killing us, man.
Over!
Bless the bomb, over. Drop the bomb, man. Commando! Tiger Mafia.
Now, if you're anything like me, and that was the first time watching that clip, you found it hilarious. And the computer graphics they employed, laughable. But the more I dug into this movie, and the more I found out about it, I then realized that this movie is actually a modern day parable that we all need to pay attention to. See, one principle that rings throughout the Bible is that God is not so much so concerned about what you have, but what you do with what you have, and in a sense, the principles of faithfulness and stewardship. And perhaps this is best depicted in the parable in Matthew 25 about the talents, where God gives to each of his servants a number of talents, which was essentially a measure of money. To one he gives 5, to another he gives 2, and to the last one he gives 1 talent. Now, to each of those servants who took what they had and made the most of it and actually ended up doubling it, they were called good and faithful servants. But to the one servant who took the 1 talent he had, hid it away, and didn't do anything with it, he is called a wicked and a lazy servant. And ultimately, even the 1 talent that he has is taken and given away. Now, with this in mind, we can learn a lot from Ramon Productions. See, as one director says that, when you're in the West and you don't have a lot of money, you shoot a movie of 2 people having a conversation. You don't try to shoot a full-length action movie. But the guys from Ramon Productions didn't look down on what they had and made the most of it. They used scrap metal and wood to create replica machine guns. They would use food coloring and animal blood in some cases to create human blood, and would actually build their own computers from spare parts, which they would then use to edit the movies that you see today. And ultimately, were able to produce a full-length action movie with a Jack Bauer theme on a budget of about $200. And just like in the parable, they've also been rewarded for their resourcefulness and their faithfulness. They've been featured on BBC, Vice, and the Fantasia Film Festival, and their videos have been shown millions of times on social media and YouTube. And just this year, they launched a Kickstarter campaign to just raise, get this, $160 to build a studio. In the end, they ended up raising $13,000, which was 80 times the amount that they expected. Now, with all this in mind, the challenge comes back to us. What are we doing with the things that God has given to us? And I love the story of Ramon Productions and Wakaliwood because it's so relevant for us if you live in a country such as Zimbabwe, where 99% of the time, you're that 1 talent guy, the one with the fewest resources, fewest opportunities, and fewest platforms. But even in all of that, the Bible says that he has given us everything that pertains to life and to godliness, which means irrespective of your situation and your circumstance, there's something that God has given to you that's relevant to your life that if you are faithful to steward, you will ultimately have increase. And so, in conclusion, the challenge to us is to really have an audit of our lives. It doesn't matter if you're unemployed, leading a small church, or whatever you're involved in. Take a moment to ask yourself that what are those things that God has uniquely given to me? It can be relationships, talents, gifts, abilities, platforms. And ask yourself, how faithful have you been in those things? Or have you become preoccupied with what you don't have, that you're no longer making the most of what you do have? Now, once we become masters at being faithful in the little, ultimately we will have much. And God will increase us just like the guys have been increased at Ramon Productions. And most importantly, we will become good and faithful servants in our service to God.